Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Vishwaro Guratmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyomabda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sarva Vedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Satiguru Pranatoshmaham Om Shanti 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 Om Namaste. Okay, back to Tripura. We have seen last class those passage, beautiful verse talking about the nature of the self, the nature of samadhi, the nature of reflected consciousness as pure illumining, with the illuminant, and then the reflect consciousness condense or collapse to become thoughts, deliberation, considerations, determinations, and all of that. We have seen all of that. The illuminant is, however, the same and all through, and it's unblemished, verse 81. Therefore, this reflected consciousness, before it gets entangled with a thought process, let's say, is said here to be the very nature of the abstract intelligence. Again and again, there is a pointer, to the fact that reflect consciousness is original consciousness from the standpoint of the Jiva Atma, the self. If it's recognized without all the entanglement with one's thought process. So that's the power of Maya. As I have mentioned last class, we have the term that once that is understood, and then you have no problem with get caught up with your own mental process whenever necessary. The problem is to be compulsively engaged on mental processes which are not necessary. So it's said to be the very abstract intelligent in its illuminant nature. It's just there. It's reflect. It's the only experiential possibility we have, in respect to our true nature, is reflected and in its illuminant aspect, feature. Samadhi is sleep, and sleep, they are unbroken, and this consciousness, this illuminant nature of reflect consciousness is not often appreciated because it gets broken by thoughts. But in deep sleep, in samadhi, we recognize more in retrospect. Recognition of this limitless abstract intelligence in between thoughts remains unrecognized because of this fragmentation. But samadhi and sleep can be recognized because they remain. But if it's fleeting, fragmented in between the thoughts, it's difficult to recognize. The wakeful, okay. But fleeting samadhi goes under the tact because people are not conversant with it. That's a point I want to come back to. Because we are not familiarized with this abstract intelligence, reflect in our mind, producing pure illumination of our subtle and physical environment, we are not familiarized with this abstract intelligence, this knowingness. In the absence of thoughts and object, we are not familiarized with that. To get familiarized with that is to get familiarized with with samadhi, more specifically, savikalpa samadhi, in which you are there alert and you are getting familiarized with reflect consciousness, such as in the words of Nisargadatta Maharaj, he would say pure illumination, pure consciousness, pure reflection. Huh? Obrami, fleeting samadhi. What is it? Fleeting samadhi is experienced by all during the days, in normal day-to-day experience, even in their busy moments, but it goes unnoticed. For lack of knowledge, we don't know what is the most subtle, which is original consciousness that must be observed as reflect consciousness in its illuminant feature, nature. Every instant free from thoughts. Therefore, this whole need for meditation, the tendency in the world of experience no mind, no thoughts, empty mind, silence, and so on, because there we can begin getting familiarized with something. But if we don't have the entire knowledge, understanding of what we are trying to accomplish here, we take the no mind, the no thoughts to be reality. But we don't understand what we are really doing, and we don't understand why this reality come and go, disappears when thought comes, and then appears again when I make an effort to create an empty mind again. We get confused, so how I have to live my entire life trying to produce this kind of samadhi, which is never really gets stable. Why? Because there is not the entire understanding of the mechanics, okay, of that blissful experience of no mind, of no thoughts, was not fully understood, okay? So in every situation, we have this samadhi, which is the illuminant nature or feature of reflect consciousness, and then the thought process, which is the cognitive, which is the engaging nature, or how they say, deliberately considerations in regards to the thoughts that appears. So once we understand the mechanics, and then we understand, yes, so there is an aspect that it's pure luminosity, and it's illuminating my mental and physical reality or surrounding. Yeah? And then we tap into that, and it feels so good. It feels so good. It feels so good. I'm gonna give up thinking of anything else, but you cannot. You cannot. You are a human being. You are designed to think and respond to the stimulus. So, and then we need to get in contact with this body of knowledge, understand that it feels good to remain with a silent, quiet mind. And then that takes us sometimes over decades or lifetimes to Vedanta, because we say, okay, every effort I have made to remain with no mind never produced a permanent no mind. And furthermore, if I don't stand up and start activate my mind to get bread and butter and rice and beans, I'm not going to survive. So, and then one gradually comes to Vedanta to understand that we do not need to give up thinking, okay? We just need to understanding these teachings which were revealed to us and so beautifully in this text. Samadhi is simply absence of thoughts. Such a state prevails in sleep and at some odd moments, which before we get into having those vasanas, spiritual vasanas, right? I'm not talking about Vedantic vasanas, but any spiritual vasana, everybody has experienced odd moments in which you are so happy. and you did not drink alcohol and you did not take any drug. It's just a moment that your mental condition changed and you feel samadhi, absence of the usual thinking process of concerning and desires and fears and anticipation and preoccupation. So samadhi is the absence of this process. And we experience here in the wakefulness state. Yet, it's not called samadhi because all the tendencies of the mind are still there, latent, ready to manifest in the next instance. So technically, it's not called samadhi. Literally, it is a sort of samadhi, but you are not aware of the samadhi. You don't know where the hell it came from and why it stays so little. And they stay so shortly, they leave us so quickly because of the proclivities of the mind, the vasana, the tendencies, that somehow projects themselves. They are latent. So samadhi must suppress those proclivities for a longer period of time to be technically called a samadhi. Okay, so I was in samadhi for 30 minutes. It was beautiful. But then the mind comes back. The mind comes back. Why? Because the tendencies of the mind are there latent. And you don't want to kill all the seeds of your mind. Otherwise, you are not going to be able to think anymore and not function anymore. You're going to be like a baby again. Just imagine, oh no, I did so much spiritual work that I destroy all the proclivities of my vasanas, my causal body. And now what? Now I go around more or less like 67 years, baby, 6 months baby in a body of an older man. No, it's not possible. We need to hold our proclivities. There must be another way out, another solution. And the solution is this: understanding that is my nature and it feels good. And then once I understand that that's my nature, I want to understand what is the mechanism that makes me feel good. It is a mind which is not compulsively thinking about things to gain, maintain, or avoid. It's a mind that is at rest. But it's a mind. Some thoughts come and go, but it's a mind. When it needs to think more, it thinks more, activates the intellect. So the way out is to understand that the mind is there, is going to remain there, and the mechanism is a mechanism of ignorance, desires and aversions that creates this compulsiveness of mental activity, which is very disturbing. So in a way, the way to reduce, minimize this mental activity is to understand the nature of mental activity, which is self-ignorance. It's ignorance of what? That my nature is consciousness, and I experience this consciousness reflect as the illuminant aspect of consciousness, and it is delightful. It's blissful, it's beautiful, it's peaceful, okay? But then when I engage into thoughts, I don't have that experience, but I need to engage into thoughts, into some thoughts, okay? So, and then how I'm going to minimize this tendency, these proclivities of thinking, understanding that they come out of ignorance, okay? They are projection of ignorance because it's always afraid and always desiring something. And that creates, all this perturbation, mental disturbance, perturbation, fears, and a lot of negative or uncomfortable feelings and emotions that disturb and compromise our body-mind, compromise our intellect, our emotional center, our memory center. Everything is affected by this constant excess of mental activity. Now, how I'm going to take care of this self-ignorance? You're going to have to apply the medicine of self-knowledge, which is the teachings of Upanishad. Why? Because unless I understand that my nature is original consciousness and I experience it in the day-to-day experience of life, and then I want also to enjoy, not only to know that I am consciousness of limitless nature, but I want to enjoy my nature. Okay, and then you have to have a pure mind, purify the mind. Okay, have a certain control over the mind by the means of what? By the means of jnana, understand. And then if all tendencies come, you just remind those tendencies. Take it easy. You don't need anything to complete yourself because you are Purna. You are consciousness, and you are non-dual in nature. There is only you. All of these are just superimpositions. No? So, and then you go back again and again to the knowledge that's going to minimize those tendencies. And then we move gradually into the fruit, to enjoy the fruits of self-knowledge, which is Savikalpa Samadhi, more specifically, or Sahaja Samadhi, howsoever. Savikalpa Samadhi, if you like to sit down because you have a vasana to be a Buddha, and then you sit there, and then you're going to enjoy Savikalpa Samadhi. If you are more active, engaging the world, and then you're going to be happy with Sahaja Samadhi, okay? In spite of all my mental engagement, I know, I'm aware of this peace permeating, this fragrance permeating my interactions with the world. So the proclivities are latent, so we don't call it samadhi, but there is samadhi there. The infinitesimal moment of seeing an object is not tainted by deliberation or consideration on its qualities, and it's exactly like samadhi. I will tell you more about samadhi, my disciple at that point. The unmanifest state, the firstborn of abstract intelligence, revealing there is not anything, is the state of abstraction, full of light. It is, however, called sleep because it is the insentient aspect or phase of consciousness. So here, the king says that there is the unmanifest state, which is the causal state. It's the firstborn out of, let's say, Brahman. It is Maya, okay? It's synonymous of Maya, the causal body. So the unmanifest state, the firstborn of consciousness, the abstract intelligence, which reveals the knowledge that is not anything, okay? That state is the state of abstraction, full of light, meaning to say it is permeated by light. Consciousness is there, but it is not really reflecting. It is, however, called deep sleep because it is in the sentient phase of consciousness. As we know, consciousness is all pervasive. Consciousness is there in deep sleep, in the experience, the micro experience of the Jiva Atma, and in the macro experience of Ishvara, let's say. So it's there. But that is the insentient phase of consciousness manifest as Maya, or the macrocosm causal body, or manifest as Jiva Atma in its manifestation as an incarnated soul. So that is the insentient phase of consciousness, causal body, causal mind. Nothing is there in deep sleep. Nothing is revealed because there is nothing to be revealed. Sleep is therefore the manifestation of the insentient state. But in samadhi, now he's making a very subtle distinction between samadhi and deep sleep. But in samadhi, Brahman, the supreme consciousness, is continuously glowing. He or she is the engulfer of time and space, is the destroyer of even the nothingness or the void in the pure being, aham. How can this Brahman, he or she, be the ignorance of sleep? So now the distinction here is very subtle. In Samadhi, Brahman, pure, limitless consciousness, is glowing all the time. So how it is being glowing all the time? It's glowing all the time in deep sleep as well, but it's somehow, it remains insentient. So what is this that is going to make the experience of Nirvikalpa Samadhi a sentient experience rather than insentient experience? That's the point to be considered. So in Samadhi, this consciousness is glowing. It is the engulfer of time and space. It is the destroyer of the nothingness, of the void of deep sleep. It is pure consciousness, pure beingness. How can this consciousness be equated as the ignorance of deep sleep? He's trying to say there is a distinction here. Okay, in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, there is consciousness. It is self-conscious. Okay, and consciousness can be self-conscious only if whosoever has entered that state, entered in with the knowledge aham brahmasmi, is the only thing that can distinguish the yogic, ignorant, self-ignorant Nirvikalpa Samadhi from the jnani Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So not most jnanis never went into Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Most of the yogis never got self-knowledge, never became a jnani. So some jnani, some yogis have the jnana, and they like to go into Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So they enter that state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and rather than experience the insentient nature of Brahman, they experience the sentient as opposed to insentient, because there is a glowing consciousness which has engulfed time, space, and the void. It's not the same as pure as deep sleep. Therefore, sleep is not the end all and the be all. Thus did Janaka teach Ashtavakra. Thus ends the chapter on the discourse of Janaka on Nirvikalpa, on Samadhi, let's say. So now the next chapter is going to continue with the same subject. It's titled On the Usefulness of Fleeting Samadhis and the Way to Wisdom. The verse number 1. O Bhagava, I shall now tell you what a further conversation that took place between Janaka and Ashtavakra. So Bhagava is the other name of Parasurama, Parasurama. So Dattatreya says, oh Bhagava, now I'm going to go back to this story between Janaka and Ashtavakra to further clarify this topic. Ashtavakra immediately asks, King, please, tell me more. Tell me in great details what you call fleeting samadhi in the wakeful state, so that I may follow it up in order to achieve enduring samadhi. Very nice. Nicely put, let's say. So I want to get familiar with these fleeting samadhis that are always available, but I'm not familiarized for lack of knowledge. So tell me more so that I can identify it, recognize it, and hold it, follow it, so that I can achieve enduring samadhi. Janaka replied, listen, O Brahmin, The following are instances of that state: when a man remains unaware of in and out for a short interval, or is not overpowered by ignorance of deep sleep, or the infinitesimal time when one is beside oneself with joy. That moment when embraced by one's most beloved in all purity, when a thing is gained which was intensely longed for, but given up in despair. So this is I want to further clarify this sentence. When a thing is gained which was intensely longed for, but kind of given up when I'm this desperate because I want so much this thing, and then I give up. And most of the time when we give up, we get those things, and it's pretty much talk in terms of spiritual gains, to my understand here. When a thing is gained which was intensely longed for but given up. When a lone traveler moving with the utmost confidence is suddenly confronted with the utmost danger tiger. The moment when one hears of a sudden death of one's very son, who was in the best of health, in the prime of life, and at the apex of his glory. So we know we have those, those fleeting moments. The most common to us, but most of the time not recognized as samadhi, is what? Is when we are samsaris, we want something very much, but it's hard to get. And then comes a point that we gain that object of desire. When we gain that object of desire for a fleeting moment, interval of time, the mind is so properly or fully resolved that we experience great happiness. But nobody associates that with the state of samadhi of the mind, but they associate as if that happiness is coming from the object, as we all know. Other moments, we don't have a clue how, for a moment, I was so happy. Often when we are at the very uppermost danger, or many other instances. These are examples of samadhi in raptures of happiness or pleasure, in the spasms of fear or of sorrow. Beautiful. We leave desires and fears, sorrows, and the agitation of wanting something, and then there are some moments, raptures, in which happiness shows up. There are also intervals of samadhi, namely the interim period between the waking, dream, and deep sleep. So I think we all were told that, you want to find your nature, go. I mean, when you were there, going to bed, and you lay down and you want to fall asleep, there is a small interval between awakened state and sleep state. So look for that interim, So I never succeed in finding that because I was there as the awake one, And then in order to move to become the deep sleeper, I lose my cognitive faculty, intellectual faculty, to observe that entering that phenomenon. So I gave up on trying to find these intervals. much less in between dream and sleep states. Forget it. So when I'm dreaming, my intellect is very poor. Okay, at the time of sighting a distant object, the mind holding body at one end projects itself into space until it holds the object at the other end, just as a caterpillar prolongs itself at the time of leaving one hold to catch another hold. Careful watching the state of mind in these intervals. So here it's pointing for something even more subtle. When the body-mind, the body-mind projects itself. At the moment, the mind is holding the body. It was the mind holding the body. It says here, the body at one end. So the mind is identified as the body, projects itself because it says that I want, and then it travels as if and holds the object. So there is an interval there between, this mind body consciousness and the consciousness of the object, and that would be the gap in which the mind is just illumining but not engaging the object. Why delayed on these intervals? All happening will be brought to a standstill if intelligence be homogeneous. They are possible when a certain harmony reigns in intelligence, which ordinarily is broken by our mental process, thought process. Why delayed on these intervals? What is delayed? Why to neglect these intervals? Why to be unaware?
I think dilate means to focus down into something. When your eyes dilate, they become.
Okay. Oh, yeah, right. Why dilate on these intervals? And then he's present the question and the answer. All happening will be brought to a standstill if intelligence be homogeneous. So these intervals, we don't have fragmentation. We have the homogeneous continuity of pure reflect light of consciousness. They are made possible when a certain harmony reigns in intelligence, which ordinarily is broken up by thoughts. Therefore, the great founders of different systems, spiritual and philosophical systems, have said that the difference between the self, consciousness, and the intellect, the aham, the jiva-atma, lies only in their continuity. The self is eternal, is beyond time and space. And the individual is bound by time, and the thoughts every time is somehow creating, like James likes to put, as if we again and again we die and rebirth again and again into a new experience, a new thought. The self is continuous. The only difference is in their continuity. Buddha considers the self to be the stream of this consciousness broken up, of course, at short intervals. Kanada says that it is the intellect which is characteristic of the self. So he, without elaborating, he is bringing a couple of philosophies that point to the fact that the self is continuous, and but the consciousness is continuous, but the individual self is a stream of broken up consciousness, of intelligence broken up. It's the same consciousness, but it's broken. So what is the difference between my inferior nature and my superior? My inferior nature is broken up according to this analogy coming from Buddhism somewhere there. Canada says that it is intellect which is characteristic of the self. Anyway, when once interruptions in the stream of intelligence are admitted, so once we understand that reflect consciousness is original consciousness, but it manifests by the power of mind as human consciousness. It's the same consciousness, but there is interruptions in the stream of this consciousness. So I have to admit that. Once I have admit that, it follows that these intervals between these various modifications of mind in their association with thoughts objects would represent its unmodified original state. So once we understand that there is a continuity of this abstract intelligence, which is always there, never broken up, because it is the only reality, it's all pervasive, and it never changes, never appears, never disappears. Once we understand this, that there are no interruptions, it continues. But then we understand that it manifests as the human mind, and then it is fragmented with modifications of the intellect. And then we need to pay attention to these intervals. So we need, after we have understood that, and then it follows that we should observe the intervals, because these intervals represent my unmodified original nature, okay? But I cannot experience my original nature. I can experience the reflection of my original nature as the unmodified luminosity which occurs in the micro. The experience of cannot be gained in the micro, because on the experience of the Jiva-Atma, of course, the only experiencing entity there is. Therefore, O son of Kawela, know that if one can become aware of these samadhis, these intervals, no other samadhi needs to attract one. Very interesting. There are so many passages here that appear to be contradictory and confusing. So this is a good statement. If we understand these teachings properly, and then at least we understood intellectually, until this understanding can be properly owned, internalized, and so on. And then I'm aware of these samadhi. I'm not only aware of these intervals. I understood it intellectually, and I have acknowledged that experientially, and much more easily now, because the understanding of this teaching has resolved the mind so that these intervals are greater than in the case of the Anyani. So these spontaneous intervals or recognition of the luminous aspect of consciousness in my experience, human experience, is Sahaja Samadhi. No? I'm just experiencing it. And then once I understood this samadhi, we can say, oh, when I sit down, I go into Savikalpa Samadhi. When I'm moving, interacting with the world, still there is a Samadhi there, which is Sahaja Samadhi. So once I got in contact with this Samadhi, so I do not need Nirvikalpa Samadhi. That's the point to be made here, I don't need Nirvikalpa Samadhi because I understood and I put it to the test. It has purified my mind in the process. I'm aware of this luminous aspect of my human consciousness before I engage into objects and thoughts. Huh? And I know that this is what I am. And thanks God, I am experiencing more and more what for many people is just a very short, fleeting, fragmented gap between mental activity. So now I'm experiencing more and more and more because my mind is being resolved by the grace of this knowledge. Therefore, you don't need to look for other samadhi. No univocal samadhi should attract you. And then the Brahmin got so excited that he says, I want more. And then he said, "O king, why are not all people liberated if their lives are so iridescent with these fleeting samadhis? Everybody should have realized that. But as we know, you cannot realize because you need to have a value for this knowledge, value for this pure state of reflect consciousness as the best solution, the only solution for our human drama. So why? I thought everybody should be free, enlightened, because everybody is enjoying this samadhi. It is, but it's not. You enjoy this samadhi, this spontaneous samadhi only if you appreciate it, if you have a value, and if you understand what it means. And then in order to be familiarized with it, this samadhi should not come once in a while and just for a fraction of a second, but should stay a little bit longer. If this is the enlightener of the unmanifest void in sleep, why not everybody is liberated by this? Liberation is the direct result of this unqualified samadhi. So the Brahminis say liberation is the result of this unqualified, homogeneous, thought-free samadhi, these gaps or howsoever. So it is liberation. Okay, so why everybody is not liberated if everybody taps to it again and again, but they tap unconsciously. The self being pure intelligence, pure consciousness, why does it not recognize itself and remains always liberated in all jivas? The self being pure knowledge, pure consciousness, intelligence, why it does not recognize itself in the mind of all jiva atmas? It's a fair question. If the self is pure consciousness, and if it shines as Jiva Atma fundamentally is consciousness, pure knowledge, why not having this recognition and liberation all over the place? Ignorance is dispelled by pure intelligence. So the Brahmin continues presenting very, very solid arguments here. Ignorance is dispelled by pure consciousness, by pure knowledge, pure intelligence, which is now being equated to samadhi. And this is the immediate cause of salvation. You see, the conversation is going to the direction that the Brahminis say, so samadhi is the only remedy here, because this is a manifestation of pure consciousness, pure knowledge. No, you are there, and then you are shine with reflect consciousness, which is your original nature, being experienced as pure light of consciousness without engagement or anything. So this is the remedy for ignorance and suffering. So I'm going to remove ignorance by this samadhi. And this is the immediate cause of salvation, samadhi. Please tell me so that all my doubts may be set at rest. The king replied as follows. I will tell you the secret, my boy. Yeah, Brahmin, there seems to be a boy and a young boy. This is profound. The cycle of births and deaths is from time immemorial caused by ignorance, which displays itself as pleasure and pain, and yet is only a dream, is absolutely unreal. So why not all beings have been liberated by deep sleep and samadhi if they are available at all times? And then the answer is the cycle. It's the beginning of an answer. The answer is going to develop for the entire chapter here. The cycle of birth and death begins from the beginningless time, from time immemorial. So manifestation, birth and death of the universe and all the jivas in it is beginningless. And it's caused by ignorance. And this ignorance is the fabric of this manifestation. And this ignorance displays itself as pleasure and pain. So it displays within the realm of the human experience as desires and fears, likes and dislikes, experience of pleasures and pain. It's not real, but just like a dream. But that is the name of the game for most everyone, to take it to be real and to be caught up, because one takes certain things as attractive and some others as repulsive. And that holds this ignorance in place, because one is going to work hard to avoid certain things and gain something. And in the process, we're going to sustain the universe with our small contribution of vasana load. So all humanity's vasana load in all universe holds this macrocosmic body of vasanas in place, so this universe can be held. From the standpoint of the individual, the cycle of birth and death manifests as one's life, and it's caused by the self-ignorance, and it fructifies as experience of all pairs of opposites, being pleasure and pain, the most relevant to the human experience. Being so, the wise say that it can be ended only by knowledge. So this ignorance, which causes pleasure and pain, can be ended only by self-knowledge. And what kind of knowledge? Self-knowledge, wisdom born out of the realization, Aham Brahmasmi, I am that original limitless consciousness. Commentary, an aspirant for self-knowledge and moksha first turns away from the pleasures of life and absorbs himself in the search for self-knowledge. So now there is some commentary say that, of course, any and everybody has just a certain amount of mental and physical energy. We cannot have the best of both worlds, as we say. If I say, and I bring this up often in my Brazilian group, because I see that in some people, in our Brazilian group is much larger, of course. So some people, they want both worlds. They want to have all the pleasures of the world, and at the same time, they want self-knowledge and liberation. But they don't recognize that, it's impossible, because your mental, intellectual energy is consumed trying to gain and maintain all the objects of desire, sense pleasures, things that give me security and pleasures. So it consumes a lot of our life energy. So therefore, we need to do what? Any sincere aspirant for wisdom, we need to disengage from those pleasures of life. Not that I'm against pleasure of life, we must say, but we are just like, okay, I have had it. And these fleeting pleasures, they are always conditioned by pain within themselves. So I have learned the lesson, I have matured, and now I'm turning away from these pleasures of life because they don't really deliver. And I'm moving into my Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana in search for self-knowledge. So it's a fair statement. And he must learn this knowledge from a guru, as we know. Jesus, which he learned from, Jesus hearsay knowledge. And then here they say, this first stage is theoretical, academic, informative, like sometimes I like to say, self-knowledge. This is hearsay, self-knowledge. In order to live this knowledge, which is put here to experience the fruits of this knowledge, knowledge is knowledge. There is no such a thing as in order to experience self-knowledge, in order to experience knowledge, in order to experience the fruits of knowledge, he needs to ponder over the teachings and clears his doubts with the help of the guru. Then the aspirant must apply the knowledge that was learned to himself on a moment-to-moment basis of life until he taps into its immortal nature as Satchitananda. Doing so, he transcends the identification, I am the body-mind, etc. Therefore, he succeeds in feeling himself within. So he succeeds in not only knowing I am the limitless self, but I feel I am the limitless self. These are good pointers. We cannot reject those statements, He succeeds in not only knowing, but he senses and feels. He's well established, and now his knowledge is not a practical knowledge. It is a direct, doubtless knowledge. He has cleared his doubts, and he applies the knowledge until we recognize his immortal nature, which transcends the ignorance I am, the mortal body-mind complex. And then he gets in contact with the fullness, the ananda, which is inherent to the yoni, the self within. Later, he remembers, he tapped into that. He got the knowledge, he cleared the doubt, he tapped into this joy of knowing your true nature. And then later, he does not stop there. He keeps remembering the Vedic teachings imparted to him by his guru. The self is unqualified, attributeless, free from any modification. He's pure, and he's pure and unqualified because it's of non-dual nature, because the only reality in the universe is the self. Therefore, there is no room for any qualification, characteristic, or attribute. There is only the self. So he keeps remembering the teachings imparted by the guru. Cannot be differentiated from God and experience his unity with the universal self. So there is only consciousness, God, Jiva, and the universe, of course, appears within consciousness. And then one recognizes that everything is a superimposition in this universal self, and I am this universal self. This is the recognition of the unity. The unity is not like, oh, come here, let's, so we are all one. No, there is only one reality. This is consciousness. And then the king saying, this is just in short, is the process, the course from ignorance to wisdom and liberation. Ignorance cannot be expelled by means of knowledge devoid of thoughts. Well, now he's pointing out to the fact that no mind is not going to do the job, right? So if we hold ourselves in the state of samadhi, which is a mind which is unqualified, abstract, thought-free, it's just the luminous aspect of consciousness as it reflects in that pure mind, contemplative, reflective mind. So if I stay there, that does not give me any guarantee that ignorance is going to be expelled. I need thoughts, as we know. Why? Because this samadhi, this light, this luminosity is not opposed to anything. It's like the sunlight. The sunlight, there are many passages in different texts, things that I heard in my journey. That light is beautiful. The sunlight illumines everything and anything, regardless of what it is. It may be something very beautiful, can be something very, very cruel and ugly. And why? Because the light is not opposed to anything that it illumines. The nature of light, sunlight, is illumine. The fire illumines. And it's okay with anything. It's not opposed. So if I stay as the light, pure consciousness, okay? So I'm going to be illuminating, but not engaging on anything. But this samadhi, although it's the pure light of consciousness, purely reflected, is not opposed to ignorance. Not opposed to ignorance either. Ignorance is something that happens in our cognitive nature as Jiva-atmas, which is the cause of suffering and samsara. So we want to remove this ignorance, but samadhi is not going to remove it, as we know. This consciousness devoid of thoughts is like a canvas used in painting. The canvas remains the same, whatever picture may be painted upon it. Unqualified knowledge is simply light of consciousness, reflect light of consciousness. The objects are manifest by and in it. You guys have any question or commentary, feel free. The mirror, anytime. The mirror is clear and uniform when there are no objects to reflect. The same appears varied by image reflecting it. So also the self is pure knowledge, pure intelligence, and clear when not contaminated by thoughts. This state is called Nirvikalpa Samadhi. When soiled by thoughts, is called Savikalpa Samadhi. Now he's going to mention something of the distinction between these two samadhis. So we have here the analogy of the mirror is there. It's doing fine without reflecting anything. I mean, actually, it's reflecting space at least. But there are no tangible namarupas. But then the same mirror is going to appear crowded with objects. It's a lot of people, crowds around it, in front of it, before it. The same way the self is pure consciousness, pure supreme intelligence. And it's clear in analogy to the mirror and pure when not reflecting thoughts. So here the author used contaminated. Contaminated is a strong word. I would avoid contaminate when it's not, illuminating any thoughts, when it's not, reflecting any thoughts. So Jesus states in which there is no thoughts, no reflection, is called samadhi. So nirvikalpa samadhi, no thoughts are there, and then there are thoughts are there, and then we call savikalpa samadhi. So the next verse is going to go a little bit more into this distinction that somehow brought a new click, a certain insight on my side in regards to this subtle distinction. But we're going to leave it for whenever the verse comes. Ignorance is only that knowledge which is called savikalpa, with thoughts and nothing else. So this consciousness, when associated with thoughts object, is called ignorance. So is that so? Yes and no. Ignorance is that when consciousness is associated with the thought and then projects reality to the thought objects and gets entangled with that projection according to one's likes and dislikes. That is ignorance. But in savikalpa samadhi, this thought is there. Not necessarily we call it ignorance, because once is identified as consciousness, one can see and feel and sense the light illuminating certain thoughts, but not discounting the light. Both are there, a thought object and the light. Both are there. Sometimes this object appears and then comes back, but one is identified as the light, original light, experientially manifest as pure reflection or savikalpa. That ignorance exists in many ways in the form of cause and effect. So ignorance is the belief that the thoughts objects are real, and I need to chase them and gain certain objects and avoid certain objects, and so that is total ignorance, as I said. Savikalpa is a good state of samadhi, very similar to the state of Rahasya samadhi. The only difference from my understanding so far is savikalpa, you were sitting in your meditation room and you are not engaging with the world. You are not interacting. You understand? You are just, okay, now I'm in my room and I'm going to practice samadhi. How so? I'm going to just, sit and withdraw from the world, and then I'm going to meet my inner world, and then I'm going to identify the pure reflection of light, which is going to illumine my inner thought, feelings, and emotions. I'm going to not fight with those thoughts, feelings, and emotions, but my focus is on this pure light, this pure reflection. So, and then when I start experiencing a great joy, which is Savikalpa Samadhi, the bliss in spite of certain thoughts, the bliss in between those thoughts, and the bliss in spite of certain thoughts, permeating those. So that is the luminous aspect of consciousness, reflect in that state of Savikalpa Samadhi, which includes thoughts that are occurring in my meditation room. So this cosmic, eternal, beginningless ignorance manifests in many ways in the form of cause and effect. So how it manifests? It is eternal. Oh, no, it must have had the beginning. No, reality does not have any beginning. The apparent reality does not have any beginning. We say that it is as beginningless as anything, okay? So it just goes from the causal to the fully manifest, and that is the ignorance that exists due to this most fundamental law of Maya Ishvara, which is causality, no? Cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. I come into the world of cause and effect. I was born out of cause and effect. My actions and the results of my actions brought me into another birth. No? All of that is due to this beginningless ignorance. For ignorance is only the original modification in consciousness rather than contamination. What is this original? Is only the original contamination cause continued as infinite birth. Okay, so this ignorance is only the original modification that occurs in consciousness as Jivatmas. So Jivatmas are going to appear, and then one day there is a thought, feeling, I am, I exist. It means to say that consciousness is manifesting as mind in an intelligent, complex biological organism, not in robots. So, and then we have the I am, I exist thought feeling. And that is the original modification consciousness. Otherwise, consciousness is only there, either unmanifest or manifest as luminosity. I'm talking about conscious luminosity. So, like in the babe, 1 year or 6 months, or the babe is there, you see that, it's just the light of consciousness is flashing through the eyes of the babe. But then modifications occur. So these modifications, they are the I am, the body-mind thought that begins at early age, I am. And then the babe very soon starts saying, oh, I like milk, big trouble. Anytime that the milk is not available, it makes a big scene. So cause and effect is the name of the game. So we're going to carry on next Monday this wonderful text on Tripura. Anything from you guys?
Thank you, Arlinda. It is wonderful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it much more than when I was doing it in Portuguese language. Yeah. Okie dokie. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purna Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste. Meet again this coming Monday. Ishwara willing.
Thank you, Arlinda.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Arlinda.
Thank
God
you.
bless.
God bless.
Bye now.
Bye.